Hey, listen, if you did really bad in the first round, maybe you picked a team to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season and then promptly jumped off the bandwagon the second they got into the playoffs,
Well, then your name wouldn't be Mad Duck.
That's right. Mad Duck. Quack, quack, mofos. The great thing is we got the Spark bracket and there's prizes. And if you messed up your first round, we're going to let you back in for the second round. You can make a whole bunch of other picks. And Jesse, get some prizes too.
Yeah, it'll be a second chance bracket. So you can't win the original bracket, but you can win the second chance bracket. And I know who I'm leaning on, but you'll have to go to the Spark app and see all of the SDPN picks, where you can catch them there and see who actually picked to win the Stanley Cup the second time around.
Your best bet is just pick whatever Maddie picks, I think.
Yeah.
Other thing, live stream schedule.
Yes, we are live tomorrow.
We're live tomorrow.
Which is a rare thing for the SDB because we don't do live shows, but it is a big day in Leafs history because they are either going to get dunked on in a historical fashion by the Boston Bruins or they get like a first overall pick.
Which would be cool.
So we're going to have a live taping of a portion of the SDP, our second episode of the week, that we're going to do 7 to 7:30-ish whenever all of the draft lottery festivities are over. So live tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern on the SDPN YouTube channel. Tune in.
Steve's doing Montreal, Buffalo. I'm doing Colorado, Minnesota, and Vegas, Anaheim. Jesse, the people need to know, is Jesse making a reappearance?
I got to ask Gritty. We'll see
Wow.
if Gritty will let me watch Philly Flyers games. We'll see.
Okay,
We'll see.
let's start the show.
SDP, the Steve Dangle Podcast, with your hosts, Steve Dangle, Adam Wilde, and Jesse Blake.
Let's go!
One of the biggest days in Leafland that I can imagine, and I can remember, and we can remember quite a bit. And if you are living under a rock, the big news today is that Corbinian Holzer has retired. Thank you, Stephen Ellis, for that. Yes, he finished it off with the ICEHL. Corbinian Holzer, former Duck, former Nashville Predator, former Toronto Maple Leaf.
I ever tell the story how I saw him outside Grace O'Malley's and he was wearing full lederhosen?
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
He's retired. I can tell the story now. I was outside and we recognized each other. Hey, we were both very drunk and hugged each other.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. I've always loved Corby.
Now, we're doing the show a little bit later today because Jesse was down at the press conference for the actual news, which is John Chayka, Matt Sundin being introduced to Leafs Nation officially, although we've known about this. Seemingly, it feels like it's been a week that we've known these guys are going to be the guys. It does
Where's
feel
Doug Armstrong?
Where's Mike Gillis?
Yeah, fair.
No, February, we all locked in who was going to be the president of hockey operations. Now that job doesn't exist, and Doug Armstrong's still in St. Louis.
That's right. That's right. They didn't even call.
No.
Doug didn't even get a call.
Well, there are some teams who are going to lose executives who also didn't get a call, and I guess we'll get to that.
We can talk about that. So, anyway, long story short, big press conference today. So now, I'm going to defer to Jesse on a lot of these things because he was there. But we're going to run through some of the answers that were given, some of the things that were said, and if you're not on Twitter today because you probably have other things to do, and that's totally cool. There's a lot of it's this or it's that.
Right.
There's a lot of fuck these guys, and then there's a lot of I'm open to it, and fuck you for not being open to it. And I would just like to say this: I think you should be open to it.
I'm open to it.
I think everybody should be open to it. I think everybody should be open to this being a success. I think you're right to be skeptical. And I think it's fair to be skeptical. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being skeptical. And I've gotten a couple messages, and this is Leaf fans talking to me and saying, well, you guys have already made up your mind and you're already negative and media, whatever. Listen, I think 2 out of the 3 guys who were up on that stand today came off pretty well. And
the other's the CEO.
The other's the CEO. So we can talk about that in a second. But first, let's talk about the fact, Jesse, the Leafs seem to be leaning into the past a little bit. As the press conference is just about to get underway, Darcy Tucker, Wendell Clark, Doug Gilmour all walk out and sit down.
Yes.
And that's notable.
It's a concerted effort by, I assume, Keith Pelley and his little minions. We are going to roll out the Legends Row statues in front of you, the walking versions, and parade them around so that you feel happier about the organization.
Right.
And we're going to hire one of them despite him having no resume.
That's right. Now, they kick off. It was kind of weird because there was like an audience there that wasn't media.
Yeah, so they had it take place at Real Sports.
Okay.
Keith Pelley, if you remember, came into the organization. One of the things he mentioned first was he was going to renovate Real Sports and turn it into a better place to watch sports. And all those renovations are, I think, complete now. So they had everybody come down there.
How did it look?
And it looks good.
I was there recently. It looks completely different.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it looks like it's a new spot. I think they did a good job.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the upstairs yet, but
Me
the
neither.
upstairs, if anybody's been there, they have a giant screen by the bar, and then there's an upstairs level and a downstairs level. The upstairs level was filled with MLSE employees
Okay.
who got to watch the
Who
maybe not MLSE, maybe Maple Leafs. I'm not sure.
they who awkwardly like cheered a little bit at times. And I'm
Yeah,
like, that's
so
weird.
There was a lot of round of applause at moments, like, "Hey, we're going to introduce people," and then there's clapping because somebody starts clapping, and they're like, "This is my job. I have to clap along with the people who are my bosses who are starting this clapping." So they'd all clap with that, and then the media were just sitting there and be like, "We're not."
You know,
what
when
are
we
you
worked
guys
for
doing?
Keith Pelley, worked under Keith Pelley. I didn't work for Keith Pelley. I worked for Ed Rogers. But when we worked there, we had those meetings, and we called them the clappers because you'd have to go in and you just sit there for an hour while they said a bunch of stuff that didn't really apply to you, and you go,
Yeah, every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes they introduce something, you got to clap along
Yeah.
to it like it's impressive.
"That's how they do it."
No matter what was said,
Yeah.
because there were a lot of meetings where, hey, concerning thing, and everyone's clapping, and you go to the person next to you, you go, what the fuck?
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, that's just how it works. And listen, we all worked there a long, long time, so we kind of know the drill.
They rolled out the red carpet for sure.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll say this. Just to start off the show, they had the picture of Matt's and Keith and John Chayka sitting in the dressing room. And no matter how this goes, no matter what happens, it was cool to see Matt Sundin sitting in the Leafs dressing room.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't care that he doesn't have a resume, honestly. Like, the Leafs,
I actually think he's got a lot to offer here. I do.
he's got a lot to offer. And, you know, I'll go back to what I've said about our time in San Jose last year. We couldn't turn a corner without seeing a Sharks alumni. And they weren't just there shaking hands and wearing a jacket. They were there being involved in the process. We saw Evgeny Nabokov on the ice. We saw Joe Thornton getting on the ice. Dan Boyle was there. Mike Ricci was there. Mike Greer is the general manager. And I'm probably missing some guys too.
Well, yeah. And the Leafs.
Who do the Leafs got?
Well, the Leafs.
Nick Antropov.
For years, basically were like, you don't belong here, bro. Like these guys that had fought to the alumni.
Oh,
Like they've done, I mean, it started under Shanny a little bit, but like you think about some of these like long-term absences, and Sundin was one of them, guys, where he just was like, I remember the 100-year celebration, he wasn't there. Caberlet stood in for him.
Is that true?
Yes,
right. I forgot
on the
about
ice.
that.
Now, there was apparently a family thing, and maybe that's the case, but I know that back in 2017, Sundin was still not on good terms with the Leafs, and the same with Dave Keon. I think George Armstrong was the same for years.
that was one of the early victories of the Shanahan era. Is he got Dave Keon to like show up, right? So he was working on mending those fences, and he did such a great job. And then
Stopped.
a few years passed, and you're like, where'd everyone go?
Yeah.
No one's here. Antropov works for the team. Berube was a Leaf for 5 seconds. I don't think he was hired because he's the head
Sullivan
coach.
was a Leaf for a bit.
Yeah, that's
Came
true.
over the Doug Gilmore trade.
Yeah, before getting waived.
Mhm.
And then there's one other person I'm missing. Curtis McElhinney.
Yeah.
Jake Munson too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jake Muzzin
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But like Gilmore's not really involved in anything. Wendell's not really involved in anything. Like their involvement is they are alumni.
Yeah, Darcy,
Yeah, right?
Darcy Tucker, Gary Roberts, Shane Corson, whoever you want to call. And that Sundin era, since 1967, by the way, that Sundin era was the most successful era the Leafs have had.
Conference
Since-
final 99, conference final 2002.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Kelly
so
brought it up.
so Jess, let me
Here's
ask
the alumni, by the way. Just
Oh, okay.
picture.
There they are. That's great. One of these days I want to see Gary Roberts back in there.
Yeah.
And there's CJ smiling.
And there's CJ.
We love
You
CJ.
handsome so-and-so, and Mark Masters, you handsome so-and-so.
Uh,
Oh, sorry, wait. I meant
Doug Gilmore, who
Evil
by the way
Toronto
was
media.
Doug Gilmore, who was on the podcast last week here.
That's right.
So okay. So first thing, Pelley opens and says Sundin and Chayka have known each other for 15 years, met at the Memorial Cup in I think 2011 or something.
2012.
Okay.
which Chayka, I want to say, was 23.
So he was just a fan?
22 or 20.
Was he an autograph seeker at that point?
Well, he got hired as AGM for the Coyotes, I think, when he was 25.
Yeah.
So who knows?
No, I know. I'm joking.
I'm
but and then he thanked Neil Glassberg, who was the guy that they hired to help assist in this process. Now, he also thanked, and this was a big consideration, also thanked Matt Sundin. Now, when Matt Sundin for coming and bringing his entire family with him. This was the question. And when I talked to people in the camp, like the whole thing was, okay, well, maybe he's going to come, but he's only going to be here half the time. I kept hearing people say, like, why would he move his family here? That's a lot. They're all, he's got kids that are still in school and, whatever. He is fully committed and moved his entire family here.
Dude, the press conference wasn't even over before I was getting messages from people going, I think he has more power than they're letting on, because why else would he move here with his entire family? Well, so already there's mystery around what the hell he's going to do here.
The word was that he thought it was going to be some sort of ceremonial role, and it's turned into something that's extremely involved, and he'll be there every day. Now, John Chayka was then announced as the 19th general manager in Leafs history, and he started off, Jesse, his speech, which was written down. And by the way, people were laughing at him for that. I don't blame him at all. If I was going to be the 20th general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, you best believe I'm reading off a script.
Sorry, we're not all Jay-Z.
Yeah, I know.
What? Like, you can't just freestyle these things.
And he did say this, and I think Leaf fans will like this. Was a Leafs fan.
Okay, great.
Grew up watching Sundin just like we did. Says he understands how much the organization matters to the city. He said, no avoiding the realities of the challenges ahead. And he said, he addressed a little bit of his mistakes in Arizona. We'll come back to that. And he said the mistakes were human, and he wants to create a front office where best idea wins. And he said, Toronto, I say this with every ounce of my conviction. It's time to get to work. Let's win. That's a good message.
I thought, there was one or two comments where I was like, John, but other than that, he did very well. He was cordial. He was polite, very hat in hand. And he knew what he was walking into. You're walking into the lion.
Well, and we haven't got there yet. We haven't got to the questions, and we will. Jesse, John Chayka talks. What's the mood in the room?
The whole thing, like the whole day, was a little bit awkward because the three guys up there kind of knew where everybody stood on them being up there. I don't think anybody from the media standpoint trusts Keith Pelley or John Chayka or Matt Sundin entering and getting these roles and trusting that this is the right way to move forward with the franchise. So there was no real big fuss about his introductory speech. Is written down as prepared. We know it's going to be decent. When the questions start coming is where there's actual things happening.
Yeah. And
like those things, we always expect Keith Pelley's going to have his PR stuff and he's going to say it, and then we move on from there,
And Sundin, to his credit, because he's used to dealing with the media here, just spoke from the heart.
He just talked.
Great. And I thought, I'm like, listen, the role for Sundin is going to be, I think, an ear for players, coaches, management, but also it's a standards thing. And we've talked about this on the show about what his role was going to be. And, Steve, you always talk about his book, which you think everybody should read now.
Home and Away.
What happened?
He's part of the brain trust now. You got to read it.
What happened with remember when the Leafs were bad, but he's like, but they still have a chance.
I think it was the 07-08 Leafs. They had a bad loss, comes in the room, flips a table, and he's got he's like tears in his eyes, emotional speech. He's like, you only get so many kicks at the can. And he wanted the team to buy because he truly believed they're close. Go look at the 07-08 Leafs roster. He thought that team was close.
Leafs 07,
right?
08.
Dude had passion.
Yes.
So that's the first season of LFR.
Antropov, Caberlet, Jason Blake, Steen, Kubina, Ponikarovsky, Tucker, Stajan, McCabe, Wellwood, Ian White, Hal Gill, Boyd Devereaux. Okay. Some names.
Honestly,
not bad.
That team should have been better than they were. Go look at the goalies.
Vesa Toskala and Andrew Raycroft. Hey, Toskala at least put up a .904 save percentage.
It was his best season as a Leaf.
Wow. So okay. So I think at this point in the press conference, we're off to a pretty good start.
It's all right.
Again, and this is the key you have to remember with press conferences, is you rarely learn much. What you're aiming to learn, I think, and Jesse, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you were there, is give me just a little bit on what this team expects to be in the near future, what they expect to do. What's the mindset, right? Like when Brian Burke came in and gave his introductory press conference, it was truculence, pugnacity. And then when, I can't remember Dubas's, but it was, then we got...
We can and we will.
Well, that was later. That was not the same. That was just, I mean, I guess that's when he became GM. And
it defined his tenure.
And then Treliving said snot. We need more snot in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of didn't really give us that right off the top. And we'll get, again, like I said, I'm holding back on the questions. We didn't really get a sense of what John or Matt's really want this team to be quite yet, what the identity will be.
Well, I don't think John Chayka has done the full work in terms of how he's going to reshape the roster and all that. He was talking about how he's going to meet with the scouts the next couple of weeks or next couple of days and all that and do all the stuff for the draft and get prepared. So I don't really know if they had a distinct direction to give to us to talk about, because so much of this has to be about the process on how we landed these two gentlemen. There's too many things up in the air. This process was too loud and there's too many media reports for us to just talk about the team now. If it's a hiring like Brad Treliving, you bring him in, it's like, okay, we kind of see how you got here, Brendan Shanahan. Now tell us about how you're going to move forward. But this one, there's so many questions on why did you land on these two guys that has to be what you're digging in on this press conference.
And spoiler alert, they didn't really want to answer that.
Yeah, exactly.
He gave
that's the only thing that we want to know, and they keep dodging it.
In consecutive sentences, he led me to believe they're not going to make many changes, and they're going to try to put the guys they already have in a position to succeed, and also they're going to make profound changes.
Fundamental changes.
Yeah. Because
John Chayka did say fundamental.
Yes, that was the word.
He did.
And that's been so interesting because, you know, Berkey and Treliving specifically were like, this is going to be the brand. Are we the Bay Street Bullies, which was a Broad Street Bullies kind of play, which was the Sundin era Leafs? Or are we high skill, draw penalties, Kyle Dubas Leafs? Or something in between? And we just don't know.
And Sundin was the leader of the Bay Street Bullies, but he wasn't really one of them.
No, he was just big.
Right.
And he was mean, but like he wasn't, it was Roberts and Corson and Domi and all the other guys who
he
were
didn't
bullies.
have to do all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Because he had all these other guys.
Right.
Right. A little bit like Barkov in Florida.
Yeah.
Something to strive towards. Mm-hmm. And they just weren't that at all.
Now, then we get to the questions. And by the way, I just want to say that the Toronto Maple Leafs did the bravest, boldest thing I've ever seen them do. They live streamed this on YouTube and left the comment section open.
And
I'm
going to go ahead
"Sir, this is a Wendy's" every time John Chayka spoke was very funny.
Why did they turn off the comment?
I'm going to go ahead and say that was an oversight.
That was. And I just thought it was the Sir, you know, because he owns 50 Wendy's franchises. I thought that was pretty funny. Like, it's a good joke. But
leaving on the comments is a decision.
That's
crazy.
You know what? Maybe it says we're not afraid of you. Media.
That's how I would spin it after the fact for sure. Whoops.
You know what's funny too? I saw a bunch of like literal SDP live streamers, like regulars, in there, and I started chatting with a couple of them. I was like, "Yo, what's up?"
Was Wes Richard there?
Wes Richard was not there, but Ian Ball 7 was there.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah, and you know, he's on every stream.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So anyway,
was Denise Campbell there?
Denise was not there.
Denise wasn't there either. Oh
I know,
my goodness.
I know. Giggling Cat not there.
Giggling Cat wasn't there.
Head of the Avs fan not there.
Francois Labelle.
Francois Labelle.
Dropping 5 SDPN membership.
Yeah. Love me some Giggling Cat.
Yes, absolutely. She, by the way, generational hater. No matter what you say, Cat. Generational hater.
As long as the Habs are in the playoffs, Giggling Shaw.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My apologies. You're not going to want to see Steve's take on the Habs preview. Just throwing that out there. So I'm gonna do this as a host, okay? And it drive you crazy. We're gonna do the BetMGM big story, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna get to the part where everybody the reactions are visceral to the question period of this press conference because the questions were visceral. But let's do the BetMGM big story first. BetMGM is an official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League and has everything for action on the ice. Hockey fans in Canada, you get live bets, you get same-game parlays, you can do props, you can do favorite skaters, and bet on who's going to win the Cup and the Conn Smythe Jesse play.
Yes, there's Conn Smythe thoughts. Who do you guys think is the favorite to win?
Okay. It's got to be one of the more watched series. That's always where the odds go, right? If Lightning had made it out of the first round, I would have said Brandon Hagel. because he had like 6.
Who do you think who's currently in the playoffs is leading
Here's
the
how
odds?
smart I would have been if Tampa won.
Okay, who's kicking butt for the favored team? Cale Makar, I'm going to say.
Oh, okay.
Adam, who's your pick?
Nathan McKinnon.
Cale Makar is 3.
Oh, okay.
Nathan McKinnon is number 1.
What?
Hey! Thank
In
you, Steve.
between those two gentlemen
Who's betwixt, Jesse?
is the guy that this is all about.
Quinnesota?
Quinn.
No.
Quinn Hughes.
Suzuki. You know what? Dobish.
You guys.
Lane Hudson.
It's Mr. Big Game himself, Frederick Anderson.
Oh!
Wow!
Frederick Anderson right now on, can you believe this? Monday, May 4th has the second best odds to win the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Good for
Do
you.
you ever think you'd experience this in your entire life?
I wish it happened with the Leafs, but
He's
hey.
been unbelievable.
Logan Stankoven is 4?
But he's been the most important. Well, it's a close race.
Logan,
but
I think, has been more important.
He's been the most important Hurricane, and they're the best team right now in the playoffs.
True. They have not lost a game, have not even trailed, have they?
No, they've
Two of
never
those-
trailed in the playoffs.
2 of those top 4 names are absolutely wild.
It goes McKinnon, Freddie, Makar, Stankoven, Aho.
And then Wedgwood, who did not even get Vezina votes.
Nope.
That's crazy. Or did not get into the top 3 anyway. Wow. Hey, you know
Vezina,
what?
no.
Good for him.
If
Good for him.
the playoffs ended tomorrow, Frederick Anderson, in my book, wins the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Listen. Yeah. Shut up. Give me Mitch Marner, 31.
Yeah, 31 to 1. Hell yeah. Take it.
I didn't even see that. That's funny.
What's the other thing? We got
Quinn Hughes at 36 is psychotic.
Yeah, I would take that one. As long as he gets through this series, I would definitely take Quinn Hughes. Okay, so what's the next one we're going to do?
Do you think that holds up, Mr.
No.
I Hate Freddie?
No.
They, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, Ottawa had a great first round. They were great. Don't let anyone tell you. They were really in that series.
Adam Wild. If they make it to let's say they win the cup and they get to the cup final, having swept through the first 2 rounds,
Which is entirely possible.
and Freddie comes out of it with like 3 or 4 shutouts.
Listen, you can't tell me they haven't had the easiest path.
But
thus
that's
far.
so
what?
possible. Like saying 3 or 4 shutouts sounds ridiculous. Entirely possible.
He's already at 2.
You're gonna give the Conn Smythe 2. So Colorado could sweep 2. They won't, but they could. They swept the first round.
If I had wheels, it'd be a wagon.
And so we're gonna ignore Colorado then.
Yeah.
No.
Just like all the voters did.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that we had to bring up was the Canadians and Sabres series. Steve, who do you think is the favorite in this series?
Well, Jesse, as you know, I am powered by integrity. So I am going in 7 games, the Buffalo Sabres.
A trick question, even odds.
Oh.
I thought that was fascinating. They're saying it's a dead heat in terms of the odds on who's going to win this series.
I'm a bit surprised by that. Like, Buffalo finished ahead of them in the standings. They finished off their first round opponent in fewer games. That's interesting.
Yeah, by every metric of like the stat book, you're saying Sabres have the advantage, but they're saying Montreal's right there with them.
It might be. So, okay, help me more educated better. Is that a good time then to get in on Montreal?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Unless they trail, and then obviously the odds would get worse.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're not gonna until the end.
Well-
when I said the Sabres are gonna win.
BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Steve's is a traitor. Actually, people call you Steve a con artist, a liar, a salesman, a sham. We'll get to that. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. 19 plus to wager. If you have any questions or concerns about your gambling or somebody close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. And BetMGM operates pursuant to an operating agreement with iGaming Ontario. So this is the part where everybody's talking about it. And CJ posted a tweet and said, if I could describe this press conference in a word, uncomfortable would be the word. Jesse, would you agree with that?
Totally.
Okay. So we go to Mark Masters first. And here's what you need to know about Mark Masters and Masters Nation. Mark's the nicest guy. Mark's the best.
No.
Everybody freaking loves Mark.
Impossible.
And I
He's
think
a member of the Toronto media.
He asked a really good question. Just and without bias, as a good reporter does, as you can, how are you sure John was the right person for the job? Let's listen to how they answer.
And Gino.
Hey, Keith. Mark with TSN, just right in front of you here.
Oh, there you go.
How would you describe why John is the right man for this job?
I'm sorry?
How would you describe why John is the right man for this job?
Well, I think
He heard him.
You think so?
He's trying to big dog him.
I don't think so.
He's
I think he didn't hear
100% trying to big. Watch Keith's body language this whole press conference. He's trying to big dog him.
All right. Play the answer.
we were incredibly impressed and encouraged by John's vision that he shared with us during the process. Then we conducted extensive due diligence that confirmed what we already believed about John's capabilities. And we are incredibly confident in where we landed. I remain impressed by John, and I think you will as well. One of the key characteristics that came through in the entire process, he's methodical and he's measured. And the combination of John and Matt's is really, really strong.
Okay, we'll leave it there for a sec. So that's the first answer. And what I want you to take from this is Mark asks, how were you sure? And really that answer is, hey, these guys are great. But the answer isn't, how were you sure? There was not that answer. And that is sort of a theme, a running theme that I want you to be aware of with this press conference is straight answers from Keith Pelley are hard to come by. I thought Matt's and John, and you'll see it in their answers, answer things pretty straightforward.
I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face because I can already see the comments. I think John and Matt's did a very good job.
Gino Retta was the next one up. Let's play that one.
Gino?
A question for Keith and John. You mentioned, John, about the fact that you remained in contact with everything that was going on in the league. But it's a full-time job. Being a GM in this league is a full-time job. GMs will tell us that that's all they do every moment of every day, watching that.
Yeah.
Yet you had a full-time job.
Yep.
So my question to both of you is there a concern that there's going to be a window where you're going to have to catch up to the other GMs who have been in and around the league since you've been away?
Pause for a sec. Now, if you're listening to this, you missed it. But Keith looks at John, puts his hand up and says, I got this.
It's a direct question for John.
And later on in this answer, you're going to see Keith Pelley jump in again, and you're not going to hear Gino's follow-up because Gino did get a follow-up in. And Jesse, maybe you can fill in the blank there because we're not totally sure what he asked. But let's play the answer first.
No. Here, wait. Before you get there, I want you, again, like Adam said, focus on Keith. He's angry. And Steve Simmons has not asked his question yet that sends this off the rails. He's angry at the reporting from The Athletic about all the AI stuff. He's angry that people disagree with this decision. He's angry about the perception that's out there, and that's why he's like, I got this. He's angry.
So let Keith answer John's question.
There's no concern from my side.
Cool, didn't ask.
Yeah, I would just echo that, while I had a full-time job, that part of that job was involved in sports as well. It was a different side of sports on the capital side. And so to go around and meet different organizations across the globe, see what a world-class organization looks like, how they're structured, how they're resourced, how they're creating competitive advantages, right from ownership down through the players. It was an incredibly valuable lens. And so, I think if I had not been a general manager previously, that would be more concern for me. But the fact that I've sat in the chair and now have a different lens as well, I think it's actually been a real positive to learn and grow and become more diverse in my thoughts and opinions. And I think that'll be a real asset for me.
Hold up for a sec here. That right there is why Keith Pelley hired him. Because John has been on the capital side of this, has talked to world-class organizations. All of that's true. And Keith comes from Golf Tour in Europe.
Yep.
And that is something that very much impresses Keith. Now,
it's also a good answer.
This is, Jesse, where we need you to fill in the blank here because Gino was going to ask a question here, but the Leafs forgot to either turn on the mic or they had moved on.
No, his question was done. So when you ask your question, you hand back the mic.
Yeah.
Okay. But he did have a follow-up and we don't know what it was.
So he has the follow-up, but you can probably hear some of it.
No, you can't.
No, you can't hear any?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you haven't watched this back yet, eh?
No.
That's crazy.
So his follow-up is, I know you've talked about your business. I think it's funny that you actually were like thumbs up for that answer, because that's the issue that Gino had was with the answer about the capital stuff. He was like, no, my question is more about like, you don't know the players in the league. How are you going to be able to fill up that gap? So you haven't been in the league for so long. Do you know like who's in the NHL right now?
And I think that is a 100% fair question.
Yes. So that's what he followed up, because he was very unsatisfied with that answer about like, yeah, I know business capital. He's like, that's not what I was talking about. I'm talking about the NHL.
Watch Keith Pelley here. This is where this really goes off for me.
He's furious. Look at him.
Sure. You kind of hear it there. Players in the league.
Sure.
Keith jumps
There's
in.
still no concern for me.
It was a question for John.
I echo that.
He
Go
knows
to
the
Josh
player-
Clipperton.
He knows the players in the league, Gino.
Josh
How?
Clipperton.
Hold on. Let's rewind that last second again. I want people to hear that, because they're going to say Josh Clipperton here, but listen to Keith. He's got the raspy voice. Go.
For some of my thoughts and opinions, and I think that'll be a real asset for me, actually.
So
Yeah.
Gino asking about the players. Right here. The players in the league.
Sure.
Not the business aspect. Do you know the players?
There's still no concern for me.
I echo that.
He
Go
knows
to
the
Josh
player-
Clipperton.
He knows the players in the league, Gino.
Okay, pause.
Clipperton.
First off, that's extraordinarily condescending. Let's just call that what
to
it is.
Gino Reda.
Who, by the way, Keith
To
and Gino
Gino
worked together at
Reda.
TSN together. So that's number one.
Keith has full license to be an asshole to everyone at Bell.
Does he? Because he knows them?
Ed signs the
Oh,
checks.
okay.
Adam.
Well, yeah.
Ed signs the checks.
So let me just say the other part. I was really in that moment really blown away by his lack of professionalism. You know, people are going to talk about Steve Simmons asking the question in the way, and we'll get to that.
We haven't gotten there yet.
But Keith was furious at the question, and I think acted really. I just don't think that is. I think you sit there and you take your questions. He knew this was a controversial hire. He knew people were going to have questions. Don't get mad when people have questions. If you say at every press conference, we're not here to just sell jerseys.
Yeah.
I understand the city and the passion, and we want to bring a winner, then you ought to know that there's going to be a lot of media there, and there's going to be a lot of people asking questions that are going to make you uncomfortable.
And he manages 5 other professional sports teams.
So,
like that's the demeanor of the guy that you've given 6 pro sports teams to and 3 esports teams.
Jesse.
So my biggest issue with John Chayka and the hiring is exactly what Gino Reda brought up. Is like, hey, you haven't been in this game for so long. Why should anybody trust that you can handle this job and that you're the right man for this giant organization?
Devil's advocate, Kyle Dubas had a trade on the table, brought it to Brendan Shanahan, and Brendan Shanahan was like, who the hell is that guy? And so they didn't make the trade. And that guy was Brandon Hagel.
Right.
Shanahan, he was in the game. He was the president. He worked for the league. So yes, Chayka was away from the game, but I will lend it's not impossible for Chayka to know every player in the league. Meanwhile, there are presidents in the league who are like, I don't know who this future Olympian is.
Right.
Right.
So if it's okay, can I insert my question here?
Yes.
that I
So
asked?
this is a scrummed question from later.
John Chayka met with some of the writers and the beat guys afterwards, and I wanted to ask him about this. I was like,
Sure.
hey, because you didn't really get the opportunity to explain it there. What the hell's going on with your giant gap in the resume? So I didn't use those words like Steve Simmons, but this is what I asked, and this is what he said. Why shouldn't people be concerned with the gap in your resume and years away from a front office job?
I think people should always be concerned at all times. That's the job of the fans. And, from my perspective, the gaps are, concerted efforts by myself to do other things, to get a breadth of experience, to see sports in a different way, in a different lens. I've been very, very fortunate on business, run startup companies, run very large companies, run everything in between, raise capital, deploy capital, generate great returns. And while that's not, running a hockey team, I have been a general manager before as well. So, I think that my job is to build the best hockey organization. I think players win championships first and organization second, and any one person would just be a part of that.
I don't hate that answer at all.
No, you don't got to believe him, but I thought it was a very good question, Jesse. I thought it was a very good answer.
He does, like, when he's initially answering that, he goes back to what he's clearly leaned on in these conversations, I assume, behind the scenes with Keith Pelley. That's his business resume.
Yeah.
You see him answering there. He's like, I've been lucky to go do all these great business things. And I'm just like, okay, but that's not hockey. But then he brings it back to, like, I was a GM before. I'm still concerned. Like, that doesn't make me feel better.
Well, deploying capital is very different than drafting players.
Who plays left wing?
Yeah. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend, like, people look at Chayka's draft record like you did on your video. Yep. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Leafs have been nailing shit, even in the Dubas years. Like, there's the Roni Hirvinens and the Topi Niemelas and a whole bunch of wasted. And yeah, sure, we don't know how Rodion Amirov would have played out. Right. But RIP, but I'm just saying, like, it's not like our drafting record's been great.
Sure.
But I don't feel like when I look at that, Jesse, I understand A, the question, B, the concern, because okay, yeah, you've talked to sports organizations. I've talked to sports organizations too. Quite the difference running it and being in it every day, which is what Gino's question kind of struck at and what yours did, right? So now, do we move on to the next one here?
Yeah,
because Clipperton did ask. This is the story that I think it's so interesting, the reaction to some of this, because this is really where it starts to kick off, and you can see Keith getting pinker and pinker, and it's frustration coming through. Josh Clipperton said, "Can you tell me what happened with the combine and the testing?" So if you don't know the story. The Coyotes were fined draft picks, and John Chayka was suspended by the league.
He was already gone from the organization,
but then suspended.
Yeah,
because I think there was the New Jersey thing, which we can talk about later. Because they were testing out draft picks illegally.
Yeah,
they were working them out.
His suspension has nothing to do with this. The fine for the Coyotes comes because of the draft stuff, but he also did that. But his suspension is because he talked to the New Jersey Devils and he lied to ownership while under contract with Arizona.
Right.
They're actually two separate instances, and a lot of people get that confused.
Yeah, well, because they kind of came out at the same time too. Yeah. Maybe that's me getting confused.
And people think like, oh, they were suspended. He was suspended for the drafting thing. He was actually suspended for trying to get a job in New Jersey while with the Coyotes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. Josh asks him about the first part. And here we go.
Josh Clipperton with Canadian Press. John, you talked about mistakes or from Arizona. I'm just wondering if you can explain from your point of view what happened with the combine testing and your exit and the suspension that followed.
Yeah, I'd just say, like, Arizona was a really complicated situation, and it was the biggest challenge I ever took on in my life. And it was honestly the hardest thing I ever did, and also in a lot of ways the most rewarding. I took it on at a very young age, met a lot of great people. We were really proud, that group, of keeping the Coyotes in Arizona during my tenure. That was through a lot of hard work from a lot of people that have been there for a long time, as well as league support. As I move forward, it really teaches me the value of stability. Again, to no one's fault, there was just a lot of work being done to try to find a new arena, find new ownership, et cetera. And as those things happen, there's a lot that gets missed. And so, the value of stability, the value of alignment, I think are two key tenets that I take from that.
Okay, so we're going to leave it there. Now, I want to quickly remind everybody that he was under the Barroway ownership, not the most recent ownership. Morello, yeah. And so Barroway, I'll be just straight up. Everything I've heard about Barroway is not good. So I do imagine that he had a lot of managing up to do in his mid-20s, which
everything I heard about Morello was worse.
Yeah, well, everything I heard about Morello was from Morello.
Right.
Whereas Barroway was whispers in the hallway.
The only thing I took issue with, I was like, did you just say you helped keep the Coyotes in Arizona?
I think they were trying to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. That was a mission of the organization, and he was heading that up, and I think that's a fair point. Maybe
I misunderstood him, but I'm like, okay, you were not the reason the Coyotes stayed in Arizona for the years that you
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Okay.
I think he's nervous, and that was a turn of phrase, but he was a part of the team that was trying to keep them there. Hey, there's no question about that.
Fair enough.
So, so he didn't answer it. He takes so the question. Steve and I are going back and forth about him and the Coyotes in Arizona, and what the question was what happened with the combine testing,
Right.
and so again, I'm going to point you to the very obvious thread of we're just simply not going to answer the question.
Right.
Now, you have to be the one listening to this, deciding whether or not this matters to you. But, one of the things that I think is important, guys, is the fact is the public trust in Keith Pelley is at the lowest it could possibly be. And the reason that people are skeptical about the John Chayka part of this is because there's been some skeptical things on his resume, and the guy we don't trust just hired him.
Yeah.
Right? That's the important triangle here. And if you would just come out and said, hey, you know what? We were trying to get a competitive advantage on other teams.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying, you know what? Like it's like Deflategate. I was trying to get a competitive advantage on other teams. I pushed it a little too hard and I got punished for it. And so did the Coyotes. I would have been good with that answer. But he didn't say that. And so I feel like, okay, so like, I feel like you're hiding something.
Cheating is
Part of sports.
And I'm gonna dispel some myths here. All the best teams do it.
Of course they do.
There was a saying with drug testing, like steroids drug testing in the UFC, where it's not a drug test, it's an IQ test.
Yeah.
Because there's ways to get around it. And if you get caught, it's because you were stupid.
The NHL drug testing system is the same way, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
You can only be tested a certain amount of times a year. So if you were to get all your testing done,
And don't they have to give you a heads up?
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay. I
Why
thought
is this guy in a slump? But like,
Yeah, the NHL testing system's a joke too. It's an
not-
IQ test.
It's not a drug test. It's an IQ test. So, because what I'm seeing from some people is, well, he's looking for loopholes in the system and he's looking for competitive advantage. All those things are good. There's 31 other GMs trying to do that. Some of them probably breaking the rules. This one got caught.
Yeah.
He failed the IQ test.
He's in his 20s. But I do wish that he just said, hey, listen, we were trying to do everything we could to win and we messed up.
See,
that's a great answer.
What year was the combine testing?
I think it was 2019.
29. So you might have been 30.
Okay,
I don't know.
but
People act like he was 26 his whole tenure, which is not how time works.
Yeah, I know. But like we're splitting hairs at this point. Like
No, people are infantilizing this grown man,
which is true.
which guys, get a grip.
That's funny.
He's a grown adult who accepted a job and did shitty at it. And you're acting like we're picking on some
Teenager.
12-year-old wunderkind who they young Sheldon, pulled out of school and gave a GM job.
And play a piano at 4. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
This is a grown man. Stop.
We had to make some tough choices on our 100% Clutch Canadians presented by Moosehead Lager on Friday. All right. I was a little...
There's some gusto there.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you got to get the right emphasis on the right syllable. And I felt like Lager was like, "Arr." Now, here's the thing. When we do this segment, it sometimes is people suggesting things to us. And the reason I picked Logan Stankoven last week is A, because he was great, but B, because Canes fans, I think, did feel a little bit left behind. They said, on that Clutch Canadian segment, you need to be doing Logan Stankoven. So I picked him. And so here's my thing. Throughout the week, I want you to keep an eye on who's doing great. Who is the Canadian? Doesn't have to be a Canadian team on the Canadian, or a Canadian player on the Canadians. You can be anybody on any team who is a Canadian who's clutch.
Can I pick somebody who's not in the playoffs
Yeah, sure.
that did something to support Canada?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it on Friday.
Oh, boo, hiss. Tomato,
I got somebody who's supporting Canada and is a Canadian, and I want to shout them out.
Wow.
Okay.
Now, I hate to say it, Adam. I'm intrigued.
It's just their team was eliminated.
It's a good tease. Can't stand it, but it was a good tease. All right, Moosehead is the last major Canadian brewery in Canada, still owned by Canadians. And by the way, so is the SDPN, one of the last Canadian media companies digitally that is owned by Canadians, us. So we have a lot in common, and so do you. And here's what we want. Your suggestions for who should be on that segment on Friday and get that little bit of Canadian patriotism and honor. 100% Clutch Canadians, presented by Moosehead Canadian Lager. Now, where it gets really crazy, and this is sort of the big piece, this is the monster question. And this is going to be the question that creates the most debate is Steve Simmons of the Toronto Sun. Now, Steve, if you're not aware, not Steve Dangle, Steve Simmons has a bit of a reputation. And I'll be honest with you. We had him on the show 15 years ago whenever we started and debated him. Nice man in person. I have had, and I know Steve and Jesse have had some real issues with some of the shit that he has said. And I don't think that's speaking out of turn. This is a very opinionated person. And I think in a lot of ways, some of his opinions are daft and stupid. But when I listen to this question, people's umbrage with this question is not the question. It's A, the guy who asked it.
Yes.
And B, how it was asked. And if you're looking for politeness from your media, then you're looking in the wrong spots. My issue is not the person who asked this question. It's not the way the question's asked. It's the answer or lack thereof. Have a listen.
Steve Simmons. Steve Simmons, Toronto Sun, for Keith. You talk about the due diligence that you did on John prior to hiring him and now hiring him. In the past, say 3 to 4 days, I have been in contact with about 20 people who work in the National Hockey League, many of whom are prominent names that we would all know. And of the 20 people I spoke to, one was supportive of John's hiring and the other 19 thought it was a sham, to be perfectly honest. Words were used like con artist, liar, salesman. How did you come to a different conclusion than I was able to come to in a very short time?
I must have talked to different people.
That's it? Because I'm telling you, the hockey world today is astounded by this announcement.
Okay.
And your response to that?
Is we've conducted due diligence, and it was deep due diligence. It was a thorough process, and I'm quite happy with where we've landed.
Okay, let's leave it there for a second. So,
it's a rude question.
That Steve's a rude guy.
No, like I'm just playing devil's advocate because people are going to be like, listen, you ask a rude question, you get a rude answer, right?
When you go up there and you say, hey, the guy you hired is a con artist, that is rude.
John handled it pretty well.
John didn't have to say anything.
He didn't get an opportunity to say anything. Also, being a salesman is fine.
There's nothing wrong with sales.
I think he meant to say snake oil salesman.
Yeah.
He's a salesman.
Everybody in sales is like, me?
Me? Am I the drama?
Jesse, explain the vibe in the room when Steve walks to the mic, when you hear the question, and afterwards.
Everybody's sitting down. They hand him the mic.
So they hand him the mic. Excuse
walking,
me. Okay.
No walking.
Thank you for the visual.
It was expected when he was going to ask a question that it was going to be something like, not that much, but it was going to be a Steve Simmons question in this moment because he had been amping up to this moment. But it was awkward. It was a little tense there for a brief moment.
You think?
I don't know how. I wish I looked up to see how the MLSE employees felt. That's the one thing sitting there. I was like, fuck, I should have seen if I could catch anybody glimpses on those tables that's sitting at the top of Real Sports to see what they felt. But I don't know. Keith Pelley was not happy. Clearly, you can see that. And I think all the reporters in the room were happy that he got asked a direct question. I don't think anybody was upset that Steve Simmons went there. He probably could have been. He doesn't have to be nice, actually. I was going to say he doesn't have to ask the question in a rude way. If he wants to ask in a rude way, he can. And I'm happy that he got that out there. He can get back a rude answer. Like you said, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Pelley can answer that however he wants, but Steve Simmons did what he did.
This I've been told is how he reacts in private as well. Like you apply for a job, you have your references. I don't know. You give the names that you know are going to give you a good answer. And Keith spoke to some people who didn't enjoy their time working with John. And when they voiced those opinions, he wouldn't listen.
Can I say something? This reminds me a lot of the introductory press conference of Mike Babcock to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Because all they did in that press conference, and we broke that down on this show, that's a great episode.
That was a long time ago.
Is they talked about all the people that they talked to. And in a lot
of
all
his friends. I remember now.
And all they did was like, well, we talked to Ken Hitchcock and all of Mike's friends.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, if you talk to his friends, you're going to get the answer you're looking for.
Right.
But the point of talking to many people is getting the answer you're not looking for. and some of the answers you're looking for, and then weighing them against each other to make sure it's the right decision.
That'd be a great thing for a resume. Hey, can you put the number of your worst enemy?
Well, and especially for a job this important. Jesse, Steve, we talk to people inside the game.
Uh-huh.
Has a single one said to you anything different? Maybe not in those terms, but has a single one said to you anything different than what Steve Simmons said?
There's one guy. Steve talked to one person because he told
Steve me.
Yeah,
time.
you, not Steve Simmons. So that's the only one. Everyone else says kind of what Steve Simmons said there.
I should say, though, that the one guy I spoke to was grading on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one guy I spoke to who had positive things to say about John, he's like, well, like his work with Stathletes, his sister's the brains of the operation, but like he worked there. And I'm like, what? Okay, slow down. What do you mean? That's the best I got. And trust me when I tell you, I'm not speaking to the same people Steve Simmons is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be like, oh, well, Steve Simmons. Okay. Oh, well, Steve Dangle. Guys, for God's sake. Trust me when I tell you, it's nearly everybody.
And that's the part I'm like, well, then who did you speak to? Now, you could make the argument, and I think it's a fair one to make, Jesse.
I know who you spoke to. Spoke to Neil Glassberg, who was there. I had never met him before. He was there.
Uh-huh.
And he spoke to Hamza Tarani and his small circle of people that he likes. And Glassberg had a big influence over this whole thing. And Chayka was somebody that he believed in for this job. And obviously he got him the job, and he handpicked him and brought him to Keith Pelley. And the people like Hamza who are in Keith Pelley's circle bought what he was selling.
And you can make the argument.
Sorry, and Ty Domi was involved.
Yes, of course he was.
Keith Pelley
We're getting to
lying
that.
through his teeth and saying that Ty Domi wasn't involved. He was.
Of course
and Ty
he was.
Domi and John Chayka also go back many years together and have a great
Max
relationship.
Domi lived at John Chayka's house in London.
Mm-hmm. So those are the people he trusted. It's Ty and whoever else in the alumni who trust Ty were in Keith Pelley's ears. It's Hamza, it's Glassberg, and they landed on Chayka.
What you're talking about the Chayka connection to Max Domi, Max Domi, and therefore Ty Domi. That's one of Matt Sundin's best friends.
Of course.
What are we all talking about?
Yeah, well, so here's what I want to say. I want to say this.
I wish CJ had the opportunity to be like, that's a lie.
If everybody hates this, right, in the NHL, there's a lot of people out there who are like, well, maybe it's good because, hey, they hate this. And, the Leafs over the last 3 years have kind of gone along with what the NHL likes. And how has that worked out for them? And I think some people are looking at this as like, well, this is Dubas part 2, because there were criticisms when Dubas was pulled out of the Sioux. I have to tell you, that is misremembering facts. When Dubas was pulled out of the Sioux, there were a lot of teams that were like, we wish we'd gotten that guy.
And when he joined the Leafs in 2014, he was AGM. Dubas paid his
for 4 years or 3 years or whatever. It was.
I think it was 4.
3. I think it was 3, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Under Lou.
GM for several years under Lou Lamoriello. Juxtapose that with John Chayka was assistant GM. I don't even think it was for a full season. For the Coyotes. Ew. And then he took over and, weirdly it didn't go great. And we're all supposed to be shocked by that.
There are going to be people that argue, hey, well, listen, that means they're a Maverick organization. They're doing things differently.
Stop.
Again, I just don't trust the guy at the top making that call. Now, the next person to ask a question. So
how do you guys feel about Steve Simmons asking that question? You're okay. I'm okay with it.
I have no problem with it.
And I have no problem with the answer either. Because
I have no problem with the answer either.
Yeah.
You know what? I do have a problem with the answer. I have a problem with the answer in the sense that they didn't answer it.
Yes,
which is
a
theme of this press conference. And people are going to say to me, Adam, it's corporate speak. This is how they do every press conference. Actually, no. Go back and watch Burke. Go back and watch Treliving. Go back and watch Shanny. They actually do tell you things.
Yep.
These guys haven't told you shit. And that's the part that freaks me out. Oh, we got a plan and we're so smart. We're not even going to let you know what the plan is.
Listen, be honest with yourself here. Take Steve Simmons' name off of it. Not only is that a good question, it's the question. It's the question being asked around the entire hockey world. It's the question I get asked every day, many times a day, by fans. It's the question I get asked many times a day by media. It's the question I get asked many times a day by former players. It's the question I've been asked countless times over the past month by executives. Let's stop lying. I understand why you have a problem with Steve Simmons.
Probably share a lot of those concerns.
I understand why Brian Burke was like, I'm glad I don't have to deal with you anymore on his way out. It's still an iconic quote and hilarious and rude, but rude can be good. Let's stop pretending like the number one question isn't what the fuck, which is basically what Steve Simmons said in a nicer way.
And if they had explained it, then I think people would feel a lot better. I'm not, and none of this is to say, again, I'm going to repeat this because we have to start from, and God created water. I am still open to John Chayka being great. But
I would love him to be.
I think it's fair to ask at this press conference, how the fuck did you come to this? Because this is wild.
That's the only thing I want to know out of Keith Pelley's mouth.
And we did not know. And
any team hired him, I'd be surprised.
By the way, this just so you know, if you're not a Toronto media person, there are some great characters here that are villains or, always bring something colorful. So they follow up Steve Simmons with Rosie DiManno.
That's crazy.
Who shows up for the playoffs, doesn't really know the players' names, but always asks an entertaining question. And so Rosie's like, and again, if that was the question, then this is the 1B to that, which is explain to me this structure.
Right.
Hi, Rosie DiManno from the Toronto Star, and I'm confused. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think either of these gentlemen have been given the title Head of Hockey Operations. Is that correct?
John is the general manager of hockey operations.
Okay. So I'm not sure which of these men is senior and how the organization will work. Who reports to you?
Sure.
Who makes the final decision?
That's a good question.
I think it's a great question.
So, as the role of CEO is to put the structure and process and experts in place and then empower them.
Who reports to who?
To make the decisions. At the time of the interviews, it was really fascinating. Neither John or Matt's at any time talked about titles. They only talked about goals.
Okay, we're talking about those.
Stanley Cup. In fact, I don't even think Matt's knew what his contract title was until he got the contract himself. Would that be fair?
Fair.
Yeah. So I can tell you unequivocally that these two gentlemen are totally focused on one thing, and that's bringing the Stanley Cup to Toronto. The way that it'll work is John is the general manager of hockey operations. And I think these two will work collaboratively together on everything. Big decisions will obviously be collective, but at the end of the day, on a day-to-day business, John is is the general manager of hockey operations, and Matt's has a role within hockey operations, but it will be something that will completely be collaborative throughout the entire process.
Okay, let's hold there for a second. Did not answer the question. John is general manager of hockey operations, which in every other team is two different things.
That is the first time anybody has been named general manager of hockey operations in the history of the NHL.
Okay, I was going to ask the same thing.
That's not a position.
And Matt's works within that, which tells me that it's John's call. Somebody's got to make the call. That's how leadership works.
Okay, so that's how it comes across.
But he didn't say that.
Watch this. John's in charge. See how easy that was? You like a short answer, Keith? Give me one. John's in charge.
John will make the ultimate call.
No, you know why it was a long answer to a short question? Because he's bullshitting us.
By the way, do you also know that neither of them are going to make the call? Keith's making the call.
Yeah. Do you know that the new title that they've invented for hockey, thank you for being revolutionary in your words, Keith, general manager of hockey operations, is because of Rogers' directive to not have presidents?
Yeah, it's a corporate directive across the whole thing.
They can't call John Chayka the president of hockey operations because Rogers is committed, since they've bought the team, to get rid of that role, and they are continuing that. So Keith Pelley, he keeps going back to that term because he knows his daddy is watching, and he can't use that word president.
And let me just say this.
Oh my God.
That is so the company that I remember working for.
Oh,
That is 100% the company to a T. Nothing's changed. On brand. Red is red. Blue is blue. Bell was the same.
Dude.
But Bell would be that way in a different way. Rogers, that is Rogers. They would pick a thing, a niggling thing, and be like, this is the corporate thing. And every manager in the company would be like, oh, we got to get to that. And so this makes him extremely uncomfortable, Jesse. Right?
Yes, because he's being asked a very direct question and he's being asked to define this role, and he knows what specifically he can't call it, and that's a president's role, and he's got to diminish John Chayka's role within the organization to general manager level because Keith Pelley has to be the president decider for all of these sports teams he runs.
It's not about what's right. It's about what we said on a piece of paper.
Our corporate structure and how we want things to run up to ownership. It has to be me, and then everything falls below me. So I can't have a president. And even though that John Chayka's come here and taken this role, and it kind of seems like president, it's not going to be president at all because that's what Rogers has decided.
So,
okay. Forget the fact that they're running things like literally The Sopranos. How are you not prepared to answer that question competently?
I think that was his preparation. I think that is him being. I think
Jesus,
that is.
I think Jesse's right. Jesse's right.
That is Keith Pelley being prepared.
Yep.
He knew a question like that was coming. You could see him going over it and when he's talking and rambling on. That's his preparation.
Boys, we're fucked.
Well,
I don't own the Leafs.
I don't own the Leafs either.
No,
but I will say this.
I like when they win, and I don't feel like they're about to do much of that.
Hold on, though. Hold on. I don't necessarily... listen, I have concerns about the process.
Yeah.
But if it's a bad process that yields a good general manager, I'm open to that.
Sure.
I love that Mats is here.
I'm
open to John doing a great job.
Me too. What are their roles?
General manager of hockey operations, and Mats will work within that.
Steve, I didn't hire Keith Pelley to run anything.
Yeah.
I'm not fucked.
I think, listen, again, it goes back to...
I'm glad you're more mentally well-adjusted than I am, Jesse. But I happen to enjoy when the Toronto Maple Leafs win hockey games.
Oh, me too.
I do too.
Me too.
I want
kiss
them to
my
win.
bottom. You don't like it the way I like it.
You know, wasn't great when it was game 80 and they're playing whoever and both the teams are out of the playoffs and I got to go to these games and watch it and everything. I'm like, I wish they were in a playoff race.
You know what?
It's always better when they're doing well. I want them to do well.
The playoffs have been so great on the streams because the games matter.
Damn.
It's been a long damn time since the games matter. When we're doing those live streams, I'm like, people are like, how come you're not calling the game? I'm like, call this? Why? You might not be able to dominate a press conference, but you can dominate the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Toyota Tacoma I-Force engine boasts an impressive towing capacity of 6,400 pounds. How do you feel about 64? I don't even know how to conceptualize what 6,400 pounds is, other than I believe it's roughly equivalent to 3 other Tacomas.
All I know is my favorite hockey team won the cup in '64.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a bit of a stretch.
There you go.
Jesse, are you going to give him that?
That
You
is-
cannot give him that.
That's something.
You know what? He's zigging when I'm zagging. I think that's what he's doing. Also, don't forget about the 10-speaker premium JBL premium audio system that features, and this is Jesse's favorite part, the portable JBL Flex Bluetooth speaker.
I think it's so cool that you just, no matter where you are, you're just like, I got a speaker.
And here's the deal.
Take it with me.
Red Tag Days are on right now. Go to shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Ontario Toyota dealer during Red Tag Days through the end of May. Now, let's move on with the press conference. The next question. So this is great. Simmons and then Rosie DiManno, who are there's just the 2 wild cards at Toronto media, and then followed up by
Skip Bayless.
followed up by the man himself, SDPN's own Christopher Johnston.
I think that nails it for me.
Chris Johnson. Keith, can you just explain why the sanctions that Coyotes face and that John faced personally weren't red flags for you in his hiring?
I've already said, I did do deep due diligence. So I've read all the reports. I've talked to numerous people, I won't reveal who I've talked to, that were close to the process. We've done extensive due diligence, and I'm very comfortable and very confident where we landed.
Okay.
I just don't think that was his preparation.
That
I
is
think he was
absolutely his
winging it.
preparation.
No, that's his line.
That's his line.
Well, his
He
line
said due diligence.
sounds a lot like winging it.
So listen, okay, it's one thing for him to say, hey, you know what? We talked to people, we did things, those were the fact that they would not even acknowledge that they were mistakes. Nobody up there goes, he made the wrong call, but it was one decision at one time, and I'm not going to hang it on him for the rest of his life because he did A, B, and C that we do really like, and he's learned from it. That's a great answer. That's the structure of a great answer to that.
You pulled that out of your ass, and it was so much better.
But Keith goes, well, we did our due diligence. Here's the problem.
And everything's fine.
Leafs fans
Adam
don't
pulled
trust.
that out of his nose like a booger, and it's so much better.
Leaf fans don't trust that he did his due diligence because they don't trust what his due diligence process is. Neither do Raptors fans, by the way.
No.
Neither do TFC fans, although they're looking a little bit better. Good for them. I think this is the key. It's not about John, and it's definitely not about Matt's. It's about Keith.
Yeah.
We started I'm going to hit this like a preacher. We started the sermon. 2 out of these 3 guys, 2 of the 3 apostles look good here. All right? But the problem is the lead apostle, the guy who brought the other 2 in, does not come off well. And this is where, and I don't care what kind of self-aggrandizing they might have done after this, or Keith said, well, I think Keith's is going to tell himself tonight, I threw myself down and took all the bullets from the media to save the guys that I hired. That's what he's going to tell himself.
I don't think he's going to tell himself that. He's hired 10 or 12 people to tell him that themselves.
Fair enough. And this is something
that's a group of apostles.
Remember when I read out the email guys to season ticket holders a couple months ago? Oh, we've had injuries and Chris Tanev's out and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we're going to raise the season ticket prices. Actually, no, we're not going to raise them, but game 42 next year, you're going to have to pay for it.
Did the same thing for the Raptors. Oh, they're young. They just got it.
When he does this, you got to remember, and if you work at a big corporation, and I'm not talking about a corporation with 1,000 people. I'm not talking about a corporation with 5,000. I'm talking about a corporation with 20,000 people.
Yeah.
That's how big Rogers is.
It's big.
They're trying to get rid of half of them, but whatever. The point I want to make here is that when you get to that level of corporation, these executives in these high-ranking positions are not used to speaking to people that are not directly reporting to them. And so when we talked about the Clapper meetings,
yes.
Hey, wow, Rogers did great profit and we're going to get cuts. Excellent. Oh, I'm so in for that. I love lean, mean, red machine, which is what they called us. Not even kidding. Keith is not used to talking to people in a public forum that do not report to him. Mm-hmm. Now, I have heard, and I want to say this. You're going to hate that I say this.
Do it.
Heard nothing but good things about him personally. Family man.
You have to say that.
I have to say it. I'm not assassinating the man's character. I am assassinating his performance today on a business level. He's not used to speaking to people that do not have something to gain by his favor.
Can I just say the vast majority of people are not flesh-eating monsters.
I know, but I think you need to say that so I don't get clipped out.
Including Keith Pelley.
Now,
you don't know that.
Yeah, you're right. You don't know that.
Listen, I don't follow the guy around. Jesse, I've done due diligence.
Oh, yeah.
I've done
here we go.
Serious due diligence, and I can
Due diligence dangle is what we call you.
Due diligence dangle
Triple
can
D.
confirm Keith Pelley has never eaten a person burger.
Now, Jesse, the next question comes from another fan favorite, Luke Fox, who's been on this show, and he says, another really important question. How far away is this team from the Stanley Cup?
Luke Fox, for John and Matt's, realistically, how far away is this team from contending for a Stanley Cup? What season do you think you can get this thing going?
You want to take it? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. The way I would think about it, Luke, is there's a gap right now between where we are and where we'd like to be. So I think it's upon us to go and collect information and understand that better. I think the optimistic, hopeful side is I really do believe that this team has a lot of latent upside. I think a lot of the players underperformed. I think there's lots of opportunity to get in there and find ways to do a better job with the internal group. Having said that, I think it's a reality that we're going to have to make some changes and we're going to have to fill some holes, and there's some fundamental ways in which we're going to have to change the team. And so I think that's what our goal is. I think every season is sacred to our fans, to our players, to our ownership. I think it's incumbent upon us to put the best team on the ice that we can. It's going to take a high hit rate. It's going to have to take some creativity. We're going to have some things go our way, but we certainly feel like we're well positioned with a core group. We have some players that are some of the best players in the world that wear this sweater. And it's upon Matt and myself to put in place the structure and the principles and give them the resources to go out and accomplish their goals.
Pause it there. I like that answer. I have no problem with that answer.
Sure.
Again, when it's not Keith answering, we feel okay about the answers. I'm not saying he said anything, right? Like, I don't know what is the Leafs brand, guys? What is it going to be going forward?
I don't know.
And maybe that's the smartest thing John did today, was not tell us that, because here's the thing. We will hold him accountable to that.
Brad told us they're going to have snot, and then they were the bunch of biggest wimps in the NHL, and it ruined their season entirely.
Yeah.
I think a part of their brand will be, how do we maximize shareholder profits for Rogers?
Now, do you accomplish that by doing your due diligence?
Yes.
You accomplish it by friggin' winning.
Now, one of the things that got underrated, but I was so very Rogers, was for the first time this year, MLSE employees, right down to the trainers, were told, we're a publicly traded company, so you got to think about the stock value. And that is something, again, when you're a low-level employee like we were, no one fucking cares, dude. No one fucking cares. I just want to do my job and go home. You got to care. No, I don't, because I don't share in that. I don't share in your share price.
It's propaganda to say otherwise.
There's a few questions that I'm going to skip over because somebody asked about Matt's legacy, and Matt said, no, I'm not worried about my legacy here. There are people that are worried about Matt Sundin's legacy, even if he's not. The fans are like, are you sure you want to tether your boat to this? I think Matt's will be just fine, and I think he's going to do a great job. I mean that.
I'll be able to. Here's what I think I'll be able to, because I actually have no idea. Let me correct myself. I hope, if this is a disaster, I'll be able to compartmentalize Matt Sundin, the player, and Matt Sundin, the executive.
Mm-hmm. He's not the GM, though. So I don't think it's not going to be like Steve Yzerman in Detroit, where you're like, well, I really love Stevie, but ooh.
Well, he's already protected because he has a made-up title and no one knows what he's responsible for.
But he's responsible for collaboration, you idiot.
Do you want my question to Matt's regarding...
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Why are you good for the job? All right, in better words than that. Here we go.
Do you feel like you have a deep knowledge of the league watching the game from Europe, or is there going to be a learning curve for you?
No, I've watched pretty much every Leaf game and other league games in the past 10 years. Worked with the national team for Sweden at one period and covered the Olympics now with TV. So I think I have a good updated on both the National Hockey League today, but also the prospect side. And I've been obviously mostly watching Europe. What's going on there on the prospect side. So I think I'm very updated on it.
Okay.
All right. That's what he said the right thing.
You know what I like about that? Can I just be a homer for a second? That he was like, I fucking hate those guys for a while. Like, he was really frustrated with the Leafs when he left. He felt completely disrespected and then left out. And even when he came and Treliving invited him and he hung out at camp, even then I've heard sources say that there was a little bit of a turf war with Shanny, but that had more to do with Shanny than Matt's, and Matt's felt weird about that. Now, that's just what I've heard.
Yep.
Don't have that
I've
firsthand.
heard the same thing.
I love the fact that he's like, I still love the fucking Toronto Maple Leafs, and he watched every game. I love that. I love that. He didn't have to do that.
How impossible, how hard would it have been for Matt Sundin to screw this press conference up?
Easy.
Yeah?
I think easy.
Oh,
well, I haven't really, but it's going to take some time to get acclimatized, and then I think people go, uh-oh.
Well, Adam, that's him being a dumbass. Who goes, no, I haven't watched.
What did you watch today?
Yeah, fair enough.
1 of 3.
Well, there's enough sample size with Sundin that we all know he's not a dumbass.
No, he's not.
Not an egotistical dumbass either.
No.
Always well-spoken.
Always.
Underrated because he was quiet and Swedish for so long in Toronto, but every time he does speak to the media, he's always well-spoken.
He is. Cathal Kelly asked describe how this hiring took place, and then they mentioned Neil Glassberg, but it's just all corporate shit, so you don't care. Matt Larkin asked, do you think the culture of the team needs to change? And of course, listen, I don't know what Matt Sundin is supposed to say to that, because it's like, well, I haven't been around. And this is what he said. I haven't been around. I guess we'll see.
I just got it.
And he did really just get here.
Ah.
Kevin McGran, this is the last question that I think really matters in this press conference that at least we heard. Kevin McGran, who has been on the show, wrote the book about Austin Matthews, longtime Toronto Star reporter, good guy, said, how do you sell a winning future with the captain 2 years away from free agency? Which is a very important question. Let's see how John Chayka answers it.
The three of you heard a lot about Ty Domi's involvement in all of this. Can you speak a little bit about how he was sort of machinating some of this, maybe?
Yeah,
this is the question I want to get you later. Let's hold off on that. Sorry, did I do that wrong? I might have got that wrong. I did get that wrong. So my apologies. I didn't answer that properly.
Ty now?
Yeah, because basically John Chayka didn't really answer the Austin Matthews question. He talked about how he knew the family growing up and he was aware of Austin and he was a phenom and all that stuff. But he doesn't really talk about, he just kind of talks about, hey, winning basically is the answer. This question though, and
I think this was it the question before?
It was the one before, I think.
Looks like, and what plans you have to talk to as many players as you can in coming weeks.
Yeah, I've already started reaching out to most of the players, and we'll reach out to them in the coming days. Again, like I said, I think our players are our partners, and so really getting together with them and learning and hearing their insights. I think they always have the best insights, quite honestly. Matt and I, and Keith, we can come up with lots of ideas, but hearing it from them, I think, is the most important part. Like I said, we're going to get together with Coach Berube, and we're going to have a very detailed plan. We're trying to catch a moving train here. We got scouting meetings coming up in the next week, 2 weeks, amateur and pro. We've got the combine, followed by the draft and free agency, as you know, the schedule. So really, though, the first order of business is connecting with the players and getting feedback.
And then when he did talk about Matt or Austin, and it's not really worth going into, they were like, how do you sell him on that? And he goes into like, here's how Austin plays hockey. It was like he plays a 200-foot game. He's a great goal scorer. Like, we're like, yeah, I know.
I got a few texts about like, man, this guy has the corporate lingo just on lock.
He does.
We're trying to catch a moving train here.
That's a good one.
I couldn't help but smirk at that. That's so, God, I don't miss that culture.
Yeah.
That office culture. We're trying to catch a moving train.
So
Way to go.
let's end this part of it, and then we're going to expand and talk about a little bit of what we've heard in the last few days. Let's talk about the Ty Domi thing, because the answer here is nuts, Jesse.
This is where Keith Pelley lies. He's not under oath.
Allegedly.
He's allowed to lie if he wants to lie.
Yes.
Or any of the three of you heard a lot about Ty Domi's involvement in all of this. Can you speak a little bit about how he was sort of machinating some of this, maybe?
Yeah, there have been countless erroneous reports and inaccurate information over the past 6 weeks, including, that, and we just didn't want to comment on them. But including some that I was using AI during the trade deadline, and Neil is John's agent. Preposterous, right? All of it, and Ty wasn't involved in the process whatsoever. It's another erroneous rumor.
The key there, I think, is whatsoever, because that's just not true.
When is the next CJ show?
Oh, I think it's tonight, isn't it? Are they doing it today?
I hope so.
Yeah. Well,
what are your thoughts?
The AI during trade deadline.
I know.
The AI during trade deadline thing. Listen, that's Jonas, James, and Chris Johnson. And you got to remember that an article like that has to pass the New York Times test. It's the New York Times. And I know there are people out there like, it's the liberal media. And but let's just be straight. Let's be human beings. Let's be adults for a second. It's the New York Times.
Yeah.
There's a fucking standard there.
Yes.
And that it's not the Athletic, the fun little startup out of San Francisco anymore.
No.
This is the New York Times athletic, world-renowned newspaper, and this is the sports section. When I look at this, I will tell you that Jonas, whatever you think of Jonas, James, whatever you think of James, Chris, whatever you think of Chris, all three of them will stand behind that reporting. And here's the thing. Their job is to give you the truth the best way they can describe it. And Keith's job is to do whatever works for the Leafs. Mm-hmm. So one of them has to attempt to construct a story that is as close to the truth as possible. Mm-hmm. The other one can fucking lie through their teeth and it doesn't matter.
My question is, why don't you believe those three very legitimate reporters, and why do you believe this random man?
I think
who's never done anything for you.
So, and I think Jonas will know this, and I full disclosure, I love Jonas. I think he's a great guy. And there's times where I disagree with Jonas, and there's times where I agree with Jonas. There are people, because he does a lot of appearances on TSN, because he has a very defined opinion on what he thinks the hockey team should be. And you saw his article this morning, "The Leafs are not acting like a serious NHL team," is literally the title. He didn't come up with that. Editors do. But Jonas Siegel has an opinion, and you might disagree with that opinion. And a lot of people are like, well, he's just negative. Buddy, Jonas was right. Going into this season, he's like, I don't think they're going to be very good. And they weren't.
Should he be positive?
Well,
why is there a new GM?
Well,
and it's not a matter of him being positive or negative. It's just accurately reporting what he sees and feels about what he sees.
Right. And
he's just describing what is happening.
Yes. And I think a lot of people, and I get it, because it's our team. We love this team. We dedicate 82 nights a year plus playoffs to this team, right? Love this team. Okay. I get it. You don't want to hear bad shit about your team. Fuck, me neither. But, and believe me, it'd be so much easier if they were just great. If we had Colorado or Tampa or whatever, oh my God. Oh, if we were run as well as the Tampa Bay Lightning, the best run organization in the NHL. Period. End of story. Not even close.
Tampa
is the best run. Ask anyone. Everybody will tell you Tampa is the best run organization in the sport.
Except for the last 4 years, though.
Well, it's not about just
I know,
for God's sakes.
I know.
But my point is, Jonas, you don't have to, just like with Steve Simmons, you don't necessarily have to love the source. But the reality, and Jesse, back me up on this one, is there are a lot of questions about this process. They answered none of them. We don't know what the Leafs are going to be going forward. You know as much leaving this press conference, I think, as you did before, with the exception of two things. John Chayka came across fine. Matt Sundin came across fine.
Yep.
And I'm open to their success. I want them to be successful. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. But you can't expect people in the media or people on podcasts or whatever to just be Pollyanna about this. I had somebody message me and say, I can't listen to your show. You've already made up your mind. I'm like, no, you've already made up your mind about what I'm going to say. And okay, fine. You don't want to hear the negativity. I get that. I completely understand. Do you think I like watching SportsCenter when the Leafs fucking lose? I don't even like watching SportsCenter when the Raptors lose, right? It sucks. But we can only go with what we have right now. Is it a car crash yet? No. But there's been some things in the past that make us go, the tires might not be full of air here, and we should check in with that.
This is why I made the video I did a couple days ago. Because people are like, his draft record's good, and his trades are good. And I did the research. I did my due diligence and said, no, they are not.
He had the Chychrun draft pick and he had the Keller draft pick. That's his first draft, though.
Yes, let's talk about that. So he had the 7th overall pick and the 16th overall pick. The way he gets the 16th overall pick is he makes a trade with Ken Holland, not Steve Yzerman. I made a mistake in the video. Where he acquires Pavel Datsyuk's contract. They send the 20th pick to Detroit. They pick Dennis Cholowski. 16th was Jacob Chychrun. 7th was Clayton Keller. Bang, bang. Crazy draft to get those two guys bang, bang in the first round. One league source I spoke to is like, yeah, good for them, but those guys were consensus picks at those spots. So I'm not sure how much credit I give them. And also, John Chayka was hired to be general manager 51 days before that happened. And I was told if anyone deserves credit for those picks, it's Jeff Toohey, who is in charge of the draft at the time.
Okay.
So he was the GM.
But John headed up that staff and had Jeff Toohey.
Yeah.
Which is a GM's job.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Toohey was already there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But he didn't fire him.
He didn't. Oh, jeez. Hey, let's grade on a curve.
That is the job.
He tied his shoes that morning.
Yeah.
He put on his pants.
He didn't make his shoes, but he did tie them.
After all,
he's doing great.
We are talking about a 14-year-old who was hired to do the job. He just loses years.
This sounds like when I'm complimenting my dog Waffles and like, oh, she drank water. Like, great job, Waffles.
I can finally get the pee sample for the vet.
Max only pooped in the house once today.
Hey.
2016 was his best draft by far. It was 51 days before he got the GM job. 17, 18, 19. Bad. You go back and watch the video. Trades? Does he have some good ones? Yes. Does he have some good draft picks? Yes. Did he have enough of either of those things to make the Coyotes even sort of relevant? No. Well, ownership. Okay, you're determined to see this from a certain perspective, and that's okay. I tried to take as much bias out of it. And they picked Kevin Ball. That ended up being a good pick. In the second round, Kevin Ball was used as part of the return for the Taylor Hall trade.
Barrett Hayton?
Yeah, no, wait though.
Oh, sorry.
So Kevin Ball, I've heard he was like, ugh, why are we picking this guy?
Wow.
And other people within the organization who, credit to Chayka, he didn't fire.
But he listened to them.
Made that pick. Yeah, he listened to them even though his instinct told him not to.
Which is a good thing.
Which I guess is a strength.
It is.
Right? So there's some good and bad in that story. Barrett Hayton was picked at 5.
Mm-hmm.
And he missed out on Quinn Hughes. He missed out on Evan Bouchard. There was one where they traded up to 11 to get Victor Soderstrom, who, like, the next pick was Matt Boldy. Like, they missed out on guys like Cole Caulfield. Like, generally speaking, his draft record sucks. Oh, well, he got Matthias Michelli at this pick. All right. You need an abundance of those, though.
Yeah.
Dallas finds these gems every frigging year, and they just got knocked out in the first round. It's not good enough to get a gem every now and again. You got to do this over and over and over. Good trades over and over and over. Good coaches, head, assistant, other assistant, video coach. You better nail them. Bang, bang, bang. Free agent signings. There better not be any fat on this roster. Their cap. Bang, bang, bang. You can't be grading on the curve of he did some decent things every now and again over a span of 4 years. What?
Well, I think
guys, it's the National Hockey League, for the love of God.
I think a lot of people too are giving him credit for being the basis of the Utah team that has now made the playoffs. And I would just want to say Bill Armstrong deserves the lion's share of the credit there. Sorry. It just is.
He left the Coyotes Mammoth organization in July 2020.
Yeah, we're 6 years down the road from that. People, I think time's weird, right? Yeah. Since COVID. But.
He brought Nick Schmaltz to the Coyotes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Go look at how long it took Nick Schmaltz to hit his stride. This is the best season of his career he just had. He's 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like, there are levels to this. And also, Utah lost in the first round. Like, are we all just, holy shit, this is, you know what? If there's anything the Toronto Maple Leafs should strive to be, it's an up-and-coming team that goes out in the first round every year. And we say, good for them. They played a good team in the first round and they lost. That's what they should strive to be. You know what? Great. A change of scenery. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, it's the NHL. The standard is the teams that are remaining in the playoffs. The standard is competing for a championship. He didn't put the Coyotes close. Maybe no one could have put the Coyotes close, but don't show me his resume and tell me it's awesome. It's just not.
There are question marks, and we've said that, but we're open to him learning and being better.
I think there's a period.
Yeah.
He was not good, period.
Hi, just a subtle reminder that Mother's Day is like this week.
Ah!
And the great thing about ordering from Aura Frames, which you should probably do, is that they will rush it to you. Okay? You can make the order, get on it, because Jesse, Steve, mother-in-law, mother, you've given them, and...
Oh, they love it. And they upload all kinds of great photos to it and screenshots. And it's up to you to maybe help them and be like, mother, screenshot, I don't, here's the full version of the photo.
Yeah, the Aura Frames, you preload it. Like, if you buy it for a gift for someone, you open it and then you load it, and then it comes in like a gift box.
Yes.
So like the box you open isn't the box you're going to give them. You open it and then you take out the Aura Frame and then you put it back in the gift box it comes, and then it's a perfect present. And it's designed to be the perfect gift. It's awesome.
It's awesome. The New York Times Wirecutter named it #1. You can get this and save on the gifts for your mom or mothers in your life for Mother's Day by visiting auraframes.ca. Now, for a limited time, we're going to give you $25 off the Carver mat frame, which is the best seller. The code is SDP, and that's Aura, AURA frames.ca, promo code SDP, and support us by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Now, Let's talk about Shane Doan for a quick second. Shane Doan is leaving. And the story goes that Shane Doan, when he remember there was a whole thing when he retired too. Like the Coyotes are like, we're not going to sign you, and he said, "What? I could still play though." And really, he was kind of at the end of his career. But you don't expect athletes to do that. But Shane Doan was an advocate for the Coyotes, big on outreach, lived and died by the Coyotes brand. Okay, and he's now in Toronto. Because he accompanied Brad Treliving as a part of his staff. And he's got the Dwight Schrute title, the assistant to the regional manager thing going on.
He would have been Brad's captain.
Yes.
In Arizona.
You also have to remember that Shane Doan used to take less money regularly on his contract negotiations to make sure that the Coyotes were okay. And also just worth mentioning, Chayka did do the Oliver Ekman-Larsson deal that was traded to Vancouver and promptly bought out. I should mention that.
Yes, he signed the deal. He wasn't the one who fleeced Vancouver, though. That was Bill Armstrong.
Oh, okay. There you go. Now, when Chayka got the GM job, the story goes that he called Doan in, asked him to go for lunch. And they sit down to lunch, and Chayka apparently fired him, got up, and walked out of the restaurant.
Like Jonah Hill in Moneyball. Oh, we almost got through a full show.
Now, whether or not that's a completely 100% accurate way of the way things went down, the one thing I will say is there was a lot of people around the Coyotes or who have played for the Coyotes or whatever who are saying, yeah, they did Shane dirty. So whether that's the exact 100,000% story or if it's 95% of the story, the fact remains that Shane Doan's contract is up. The Leafs don't want to renew it, and he's not going to work for John Chayka. They don't talk. The other thing that's out there, and this is a Frank Saravalli story that admittedly I also heard yesterday.
I had also heard this.
So there was a story, and Elliot Friedman has sort of, I think he's debunked it, but there was a story that a fellow named Jake Goldberg, who works for the Los Angeles Kings, is in their management group, went in and spoke and said, I'm going to go to Toronto. And the word is management there freaked out and said, well, wait a second, they didn't ask us for permission to speak to you, which is what you do. And the word was that it was run up the pole to NHL head office. Gary calls Keith. Keith says, I'll get back to you. And then Keith calls back and goes, yeah, well, it was John talking to his best friend or one of his best friends, of which they're very close, in hypotheticals. And he hasn't signed a contract with us yet, so it's not illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then this is where, so I think the story probably has some legs there. Where I feel like it might have gone off the rails and everybody's focusing on, and I don't think you should focus on this part, is there was apparently, allegedly, and they're denying it, a threat of, okay, you hire him then, I'm launching a tampering investigation on you guys. And
Leafs fans got their neck up about that, and they're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
The NHL did do the research. I was going to say due diligence, but then it sounded like you thought.
No, due diligence.
The NHL did their due diligence on this scenario, and they cleared the Leafs of any wrongdoing.
Okay.
That is a thing.
Because Keith Pelley's right.
Mm-hmm.
He's not under contract. He can say whatever the fuck he wants until he's under contract. Now, so Jake Goldberg is a name. So regardless of the tampering shit, get that out of your mind. It's a distraction. Jake Goldberg, I would not be surprised to see his name come up.
Manages the LA Kings cap.
Right.
Which is relevant.
Someone else whose name has come up is Chase Glassberg.
Cannot believe this.
Son of Neil Glassberg, guy who they hired to help them in this managerial search. Chase Glassberg, apparently, he works for the Utah team. And
Mammoth, how dare you?
He is, sorry, the Utah, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I just couldn't think of the Mammoth word. He works for the Mammoth, is in the cap department,
right?
Is somebody that is not running the cap, but it would seem as though Goldberg and potentially Neil Glassberg are two people that are coming, maybe, and that it might mean the end of Brandon Pridham.
Yeah, guys, writing's on the wall. Pridham's gone.
So you've heard that.
Pridham. I haven't heard like death nail. He's gone, but guys, writing's on the wall.
I'll tell you this about Brandon Pridham. Everything I've heard from him is he is a diehard blue and white fan.
Yep.
And could have gone to Pittsburgh with Dubas, but chose to stay here because he wanted to finish the job.
You don't think that Chayka's would look at Pridham and be like, that's a useful piece for my front office?
Certainly I would. I'm just telling you what I've heard. And listen, if this plays out differently, then fine.
Well, I guess my question is,
but I have heard.
That's fine.
Well, fine. I mean, like, listen, I don't know. He hasn't made the hiring yet.
My question is, if you're bringing in Jay Goldberg and Chase Glassberg, why do you have Pridham? Or why do you have Pridham if you're going to bring in Jay Goldberg and Chase Glassberg?
Or maybe they're going to work for Pridham.
I don't know. The Leafs seem like an organization that over the last couple of years has been stockpiling AGMs. And if they're getting rid of Doan and maybe a couple of the other ones, maybe Pridham's one of the ones that sticks around with the other 5 GMs that they'll have.
Yeah.
I've heard Hardy's sticking around. I guess we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pridham's gone.
Interesting.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case. I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope. Well, first off, if these guys get jobs, good for them. Like, I have nothing against these people. I don't know them. Pridham, I would be upset to see leave because I think he's a legit. I mean, the guy built the cap for the NHL. I don't know if you could have a better capologist.
He got hit by a car the day John Tavares knocked out the Lightning. He got hit by a car and he came to the game anyway with his arm in a sling. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Go back and look at the footage of the camera goes to the press box. Dubas is losing his mind and like attacks him. And Spets is like, yeah. You okay? Because he doesn't want to rough up Pridham, he was hit by a car that morning while out on a run. And he's like, I have a game to get to.
Yeah.
And then they ended the series. Shit, yeah. Metal, nails. That's my capologist. That's my CBA guy. Hell yeah. And he's gone.
I could see Pridham sticking around.
I hope he does. I hope he does.
I don't think he is.
Well, and listen, these things could change. You never know. It's a moving target right now.
Totally.
Hey, we're all just trying to catch a moving train.
Fair enough. Now, there are other things around the NHL that people are going to be saying, hey, well, how come you're not talking about this series or that series? So first off, let me just say this. All of our series previews are now live, so you can watch them. For anybody asking, Steve is doing the Choo Choo series.
Yes, Montreal versus Buffalo.
Jesse, are you going to be picking up spot games, or what are you thinking?
I think I'm going to be doing this while the game's almost about to happen.
Okay,
Carolina,
yeah.
Philly, so I can't do it tonight.
Can't do it tonight, but there might be other nights where you do make an appearance because people love themselves some Jesse Blake. And people were saying, hey, how come you picked the Wild and Avalanche over our Ducks? And I said, don't worry, I picked them both. So I'm going to be doing both series in the Western Conference.
You're nuts.
It's going to be fun. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. And let me tell you something. Maybe your team is not giving you the best night's sleep.
You got the shaky leg a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit of stress. What could the future look like? Have you done your due diligence on said future? You know, this is the important thing. What I like about therapy is that it allows me to go, those thoughts in my head, when I say them out loud to somebody who's actually really smart and educated at this, they sound a little sillier. And it kind of takes the air out of the balloon. The mountain doesn't seem as big, and I feel like I can move on with my day and actually function a little bit better.
There's wisdom in that.
Is there? Well, it's kind of how I feel. I'm not going to lie. Now, here's the deal. With BetterHelp, you got over 30,000 credentialed therapists at your fingertips. It's the world's largest online therapy platform, and they serve over 6 million people globally. So it works, and the average rating on this is 4.9 out of 5 stars on a live session based on 1.7 million client reviews. Listen, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, it doesn't have to be something as trivial as hockey. It could be anything. Therapy can help. Sign up right now. Get 10% off at betterhelp.com/SDP. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/SDP. Let's talk a little bit about the other GM search that's happening in Canada right now, which is, frankly, less publicized in the East End, but quite as comical. Ryan Johnson was the name. He's an internal hire for the Vancouver Canucks, and everybody has this guy pegged as that's the next GM, and that's got to be it.
Yeah.
Yesterday, it came out that former Senators general manager Pierre Dorian, the guy who, and I'm not giving him a pass here, the guy who lied, claims he didn't lie, but he lied.
To gain a competitive advantage.
To gain a competitive advantage and trade Dadonov. We all know this. Senators fans, for whatever reason, do not want to believe that. He lied. He lied.
That's why they were fined the pick.
Anyway.
That they got back.
That they got back. Yeah, that they're getting back.
Because they whined.
Yeah, because they whined about it. Good for them. Whining works. Pierre Dorian is apparently the new maybe favorite candidate. He was interviewed, but apparently management really likes the guy. And to be fair to him, he has A, experience dealing with a difficult owner. B, compiled a pretty good team in Ottawa.
Dude, he's going to go.
Look at all the guys that came in under him.
He's going to go from the Ottawa situation to Francesco Aquilini.
I think that'll be a cakewalk compared to Eugene. Cakewalk.
I completely disagree.
Really?
Well,
come on. Come on.
Francesco has money. We'll see. I think he's out of his mind.
I think he wants to get back in the NHL.
The NHL in Canada is in rough shape. Like there's a reason there's only one team left
now,
and Buffalo.
So that's coming up. Jesse, what do you think about Pierre Dorian's return potentially in Vancouver?
Is it smoke and mirrors in that this is just one of the candidates, or is he a top candidate?
If you're asking me whether or not Pierre Dorian leaked the fact that Pierre Dorian had a meeting with Vancouver, yes, I believe Pierre Dorian.
I think Pierre Dorian may be bragging about the interview that he just had.
Sure.
Or
gotta get your name
he
out
might
there.
be a legit candidate. I don't know. I'm still unsure on the reporting there, on if the Aquilinis and Rutherford are taking him seriously once that interview process is done.
I've heard some good things about Ryan Johnson. I've heard he's a good person. Adam?
I have not heard anything about Ryan Johnson, but I'm sure he loves
he's
people.
a good person. and he should be hired on that alone.
And I'll give you this on Ryan Johnson. It's the local media, the guys who really listen. Canucks media are tough and they're plugged in. And a lot of them are saying, this is the guy. So, I mean, listen, if he's the right guy, I hope he's the guy.
Listen, I'm going to say it. We need the Canucks to be bad for a while.
No.
Here's why. We need a new crop of smart, analytical people in the NHL. And the only way to get that is to make a bunch of young people angry enough to blog about the Canucks.
That's true. That's kind of how it happens.
Half of the league comes from angry Canucks bloggers.
That's 100% true, actually. I don't think people realize that.
No, they don't.
Came out of there.
Yes, and they all came from the Jim Benning years or the Bim Jennings years. We need them to stink for a while so we get the new crop. We need it.
I think we need it.
Can we do the other Ottawa story? The Ridley Greig suspension?
Yeah, the 2-gamer.
Because this was the one suspension I think everybody would have been fine with them going hard for. Hey, give him 4 games, give him 5 games. And once again, Peros doesn't take the layup.
It's a non-hockey play. It's chicken shit. Everyone knows it's chicken shit. I didn't see anyone defend this chicken shittery. And it's only 2 games for this chicken shittery. And I think that's bullshit.
That's the nobody defend it. It's not even like the fans who watched it, because every hockey fan's watched it. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? It's the people within the game who came out and were like, no, you can't do this. This isn't hockey. And he goes 2 games.
And they waited a week to do it. Like, people are like, oh, I have no problem with them waiting. Why?
Yeah.
Why don't they just do it? It took you a week. Oh, no, we want to do it between the 2 rounds. Actually, you started the second round before the first round was over. So no, you didn't. Why the fuck did you wait? You know why you waited? Because there was a lot of outrage about this. Because even Kelly Rudy, who is the nicest man, who I want to hug when I hear him talk on TV. All right? Kelly rocks. We love Kelly. Okay? Is like, that's bullshit. And he said, I said what I said. Kelly Rudy does not say I said what I said.
He does not say that.
He said that's not a hockey play and that was wrong.
No.
Like, that's as firm as you're going to get from Kelly.
Now, I think you're forgetting what obviously happened here.
What happened?
George Peros did his due diligence.
Shut up.
And he decided chicken shittery is basically allowed. No, here's what happened. He waited a week.
They waited.
He waited a week and forgot about it. And he's sitting there on the couch, his feet are up, and he gets a text on his phone, and it says, Gare Bear. And Gare Bear texts him, where we at on the Greig suspension? He spells Greig wrong. And Peros, covered in chip crumbs, goes, fuck, 2 games.
We got a great process.
And that's how they came.
And they're like, okay, here's the video from the Department of Player Safety. Can't play this, but here's the audio.
Saturday afternoon in Ottawa. Senators.
It was more dramatic this time. They let it play out a little longer. Did you notice that?
Let's go. Here, one more time.
Listen
one
to
more
it.
time. I need drama.
So when that's happening, there's a bunch of like lasers and everything, and then the NHL logo comes out, and it hung on for a little longer. Here we go.
Saturday afternoon.
I am ready.
That's new. All right, sorry.
In Ottawa, Senators forward Ridley Greig delivered a forceful gloved punch to the face of Hurricanes defenseman Sean Walker. As the video shows, an altercation develops between the teams at a stoppage of play. Walker engages with a Senators player in the neutral zone as Greig approaches them. With Walker already restrained and looking elsewhere, Greig throws an overhand punch at Walker. Greig then loads up and delivers a forceful, gloved uppercut that strikes Walker in the head. This is roughing. It is important to note that this is not a situation in which two players are squaring off in a mutual confrontation, only for the confrontation to escalate rapidly. In this situation, Walker is fully engaged with a Senators player when Greig knowingly approaches them and elects to throw two sucker punches towards the defenseless Walker with sufficient force to merit supplemental discipline.
You're such a chicken.
To summarize, this is roughing. Greig has been suspended once in his 247-game NHL career.
Two regular
The Department of
season
Player
games?
Safety has suspended Ridley Greig for 2 regular season games.
Which is one playoff game.
Bullshit.
Who gives a damn?
Bullshit.
You know
Who
what?
cares?
I hope they keep Nick Delorier around because that regular season game between the Canes and Sens is going to be worth watching.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Like everything in there, they always do this. They describe it perfectly, and they describe it how it would warrant 4 or 5 games, and then he just closes by saying 2 games.
It's a bad product.
He said in the video, he sucker punches him in the head.
And it's a non-hockey play.
Yeah. It's a bad product.
And they decided 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
They always do this.
George Peros, please release
Nick Delorier.
The files.
You know,
the process
if he can
files.
pull it off, I'll forgive him for this.
Hey, do your due diligence.
Do your
What were you
due
about to say?
diligence.
Release what? What did you want to release?
The files.
No, actually.
Release us from this hell is what I was gonna say.
I didn't know that's where it's going.
Release us from you having a chokehold on this job for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
You incompetent suck.
I could even get my mind wrapped around 2 playoff games. But now
regular season, yeah.
Now that they've been eliminated and they're regular season games, it makes no sense. Anyways, that upset me.
I like that you called it a layup because like there's no gray area here. Where like sometimes there's an elbow or a hit to the head, and you're like,
Where's the principal point of contact?
yeah, the game is fast.
Yeah.
And, he
It was a
didn't,
trip and then he fell.
didn't leave his feet. No, this is just a chicken shit being a chicken shit. You're so lucky. Sean Walker should have like gone ragdoll pretending he's dead.
And he called it chicken shit in the video by calling it in a better term, a sucker punch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, if you want justice, don't go to watching the NHL.
We will talk about tomorrow. We're doing another show. And I think it's important that we mention this because you're going to get back-to-back shows. We will talk about the Oilers press conferences tomorrow. I have those clips. And don't worry, Oilers fans. We're not just going to pull the quick clip or whatever. I thought Connor was thoughtful. I thought Leon Draisaitl was extremely thoughtful. It's not just the one sentence, right? We're gonna talk about that press conference. That was a biggie. We're going to talk about some of the games. I know we didn't get to Colorado, Minnesota. We didn't get to Carolina, Philadelphia, whatever. We're going to talk about the series. And as a part of the show, Jesse, we're going to do something that we really haven't done before because we're going to do part recorded, part live.
And this was mentioned off the top of the program before the intro.
I forgot.
That we are live at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Set your watches and your clocks and your alarms that you have to tune into us at 7 p.m. because we will be live streaming the lottery. And that will either be the best day of Steve's life or the blurst day of Steve's life. And we will find out live as the 3 of us will be in here for the draft lottery. It's going to be a lot of fun.
First overall, here it is. It's been 10 years, time again.
Does Barrett Hayton have a brother?
I don't know, man, but we're ready to go. Let's go. Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow. Love you all. Woo! And we will see you on the live streams tonight and tomorrow and the rest of the week, basically.
9 shots. That's all it takes. Choo choo.
Can you imagine being a Canadiens fan right now? It's a good time.
No.
The Steve Dangle Podcast. Follow the guys on Twitter at Steve_Dangle, at Adam WYLDE, and at Jesse Blake. Connection complete.